Hi, everyone.
Hello, we miss you. We wish you were here with us, but since you're not, we wanted to offer you a little bit of a reflection on one of the Gospels that can hopefully be an encouragement for you at this time. So, Father, you had a great idea of another Gospel, actually a couple of Gospel stories, all about the calling of the first apostles. So, how do you think that might relate to us today? And maybe would you just summarize it for us?
Sure. So, the calling, there's an account in each of the four Gospels of the calling of the apostles. But the one that we're going to be reflecting on, you can find it in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4, verses 18 to 22. In Mark, it's chapter 1, verses 16 to 34. And in Luke, it's chapter 5, verses 1 to 11. They each have a little bit of their own, the character of the Gospel writer. But they all basically depict Jesus seeing Peter and Andrew, who were brothers and fishermen on the Sea of Galilee. And he calls out to them and notices that they're fishing. Excuse me. And he says, come and follow me and you will be fishers of men. And then he sees two others, James and John, who were sons of Zebedee, fishing with their father. And he invites them to follow. And all four of them follow. And then if you read in Mark's account, Jesus
My favorite one.
sees them. The word immediately is how many times?
8 times in chapter 1.
8 times. So Jesus immediately sees them, he immediately calls them, and they immediately follow. And in the other accounts, you also notice the quickness of the response. In at least Luke's gospel, but I think also Matthew's gospel, Jesus had actually spent a little bit of time. He was preaching from their boat. And so they had a little bit of time of hearing his message. And so when he invites them, they follow. In Mark's gospel, it says that Jesus had been preaching, but he immediately called them and they immediately followed. And the reason why I think, the reason why we think this is a good series, it's a good story, and depending on which gospel you want to reflect upon, this is a great gospel to pray and meditate on. And the reason it is because, if we think where we are right now, we're in the midst of this pandemic. I'm sure for you, just like for us, there's a whole bunch of things going on. But one particular thing, so there's the anxiety about the sickness and the virus itself. There's the sadness for those that are being affected. There's the fear of not wanting to contaminate or be contaminated. So there's all of the medical health things that can cause anxiety and sadness. And so we should be praying and being cautious and taking precautions. But I think the other thing is a reality that's related to that is our lives have just been completely upended. So if you can, for just a little bit, I'm not trying to be heartless, but you put aside the health things, think of all the areas of our lives that have now been paused.
Yeah, totally changed.
Work, social life, you can't be with people, sports, any sort of hobbies that are outside of the home, leaving your home,
School.
School.
For the rest of the year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Church. So many different things have been suspended. And that's sad, and maybe you're doing okay because it's only been just a little bit of time, but as time goes on, then you get even more frustrated. When is life going to return? What are we supposed to do? How could God have interrupted all of this good stuff? Why did this happen? And this is where I think this gospel is so impactful because clearly a different situation. But, insofar as that, all of these fishermen were fishing. But I think in another way, the real heart of the story is the fact that God comes into the midst of their life and totally upends it. Right?
Yeah.
Comes in. Here they are. These are all four of them, professional fishermen. And you see, actually, Peter and Andrew probably own their own little fishing company. They had their boat. Co-workers, James and John, who were literally fishing, excuse me, they were literally fishing with their father in the boat. Had the nets, were doing things. And Jesus comes in and he just speaks a word to them and basically, he asks them, come and follow me, which I think in our context is, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust that I have a plan that incorporates all of your skills and talents, that takes care of all of these things that are going on in the world? Do you trust me, and will you follow me? Will you follow me out of the ordinary things of your life for a period of time or for a longer period of time, and still be able to see that I am the one that's leading you? Do you trust me? And that can be really hard, being that, for most of us, our life was upended without us being consulted.
And very quickly. It was in the span of just a couple days. Yeah.
But I think the gospel story, especially Mark's account, really helps that.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Sometimes the way that God acts or allows things to take place in our world, right? He's not sitting up there like willing people to be affected by the virus. But given the nature of human freedom, God doesn't want to crush that. And so he allows our freedom to have a realm that he incorporates into his loving will. So sometimes things in our life and in the life of faith happen immediately. And even if something catches us off guard, even if things are way out of our control, even if there are things that are going on that have no foreseeable end in sight, do we still realize that Christ can come in and say, follow me? Can we still find him inviting us to recognize that even if it means our life will be upended, if we still find ourselves close to him and following him, it's going to be okay. Which is what the apostles show. Jesus came into their life, upended it, and their response was not, get the heck off of our boat, right? We want nothing to do with you.
That's not written in the
Yeah, that's right. I didn't read that. Maybe your translation has that. But their response wasn't, Lord, could you give us a job description of what you meant? Can you explain to us exactly where we're going, the next part of the journey? And can you explain what the 5-year plan is? Could you give a couple press conferences along the way to let us know what the statistics are showing? Can you get a memo out from the boss to explain when this is going to end? All of those things that we really want to give us control. Jesus didn't offer any of those things. The only thing he said was, hey, there's going to be a little bit of chaos right now. There's going to be anxiety and fear. But I am inviting you to trust me and to follow me. And the apostles probably had all the same concerns that we have. Like, this was their livelihood. They were abandoning their families. The Gospels relate that Peter had a mother-in-law, which means Peter had a wife probably. So he was leaving family. Andrew was leaving family. Maybe their parents were still alive. They were going to leave them. James and John left their dad in the boat. There goes 2/3 of his business because his 2 able-bodied sons left. It sounds crazy. What is going on? The fear, the anxiety, the questions were probably raging in the hearts of those apostles, those first early apostles. But still they got out and said, if God is the one that is inviting, what more can we ask? If we stay near him, even if the world is saying all of this is crazy, even if my mind is telling me this is crazy, I will trust. And it's going to be hard. It's going to require a journey. It's going to require sacrifice. It's not always going to be easy or going to make immediate sense right now. And God is not always going to check things with me first. He's not. Because he's God, and we're not. But he wants us to be his children and his disciples. And he invites us out because he loves us and he knows that it's best for us. He's going to take care of us. So he says to all of us amidst this time, come, follow me. Follow me. If you have questions, follow me. If you have anxiety, follow me. You're afraid for the world, for your job, for your coworkers, for your family, follow me. And to put ourselves in the place of the apostles and say, what are the questions that I have in my heart? And will I follow him? And the reality is, it's in their following that they have the time to ask Jesus the questions, right? It's because they stepped out. That gift of time. They didn't ask at the beginning and they followed him. They stepped out in faith. They built that relationship. And then because they were walking with him for 3 years, they were able to see him at work. They were able to ask him questions. He was able to correct and perfect them. And they went from being fishermen to being the first apostles, the first bishops, and saints. And the Lord is going to use this time for the same progress in our lives. we're workers, we're students, we're sons, we're daughters, husbands, wives, right? That's what we are now. But if we step out with Christ, if we follow him, especially in a time of difficulty, he's going to do that same work of perfection. He's going to do that same work of sanctification in our lives in the journey that follows.
Mm-hmm. So really what we have is opportunity to take the empty space that our change of routine has left in our day and then ask God, how should we be using this time? Because we're still here in the office for now. Who knows how long we'll be here. But my evenings I have nothing to do. And so I could quite easily sit for 6 hours and watch Netflix and then come into work the next day. But I'm not going to feel any more refreshed. I'm not going to feel any better about that. So maybe some of you are at that point too, where you're just like, how much TV can I really watch? But what you were saying, Father, reminds me, there's a Catholic mom blogger. I wish I could remember her name. But she said she was sharing a story about being at home with her kids and being just so overwhelmed by them. They constantly were calling her. They constantly needed things. So she said she started just saying in her mind, I'm coming, Lord, every time one of the kids called. So there's dishes in the sink. I'm coming, Lord. Little 2-year-old needs attention once again. I'm coming, Lord. So I have tried to apply that. I thought that was so great. I wish we'll try to tag her. I'll try to find her. Yeah. But I did not come up with that. So I've tried to apply that too. I don't have a family like that at home, but I have lots of other people that are asking me to do things. So to try to respond positively rather than get really upset. And that's how we can follow these first apostles, is to just respond to God's call. And his call isn't always fun and nice and easy. So yeah, so hopefully this was a little bit of encouragement for you. Any final thoughts, Father?
I was going off of what you said. Now we have the gift of time. And just like it's probably not good to binge watch Netflix, it's probably not good to binge watch CNN or any the news networks, or just stick on the CDC website. They have good information, but there's only so much bad news the human soul can take in a day. And so choosing to allow yourself a little bit of separation from some of those sources of media. And one of the things about the apostles is they were in their boat and they allowed Christ to find them. And sometimes, just being able to sit, let Christ come to you, right, to do his work of calling, and then you can start following. So taking a little bit of time each day in silence to pray, to actually sit and read slowly the gospel story, and then see what the Lord says to you from there.
Absolutely. So it was great to see you virtually. Hope you're doing well, and hopefully you can take a little bit of this to your own prayer. We'll see you later.
God bless you.
Bye.